channel, Tiffany here of Tiffany Cosplay, and if you are new, I'd love to have you as part of our community, so remember to subscribe to the channel. And on this cosplay tutorial, we're going to be continuing with more Gundam, and specifically we're going to be going over the shoulder pads. So let's begin. For making this, you're going to need 10mm EVA foam, Sharpies, Cost Tools hole drill, as well as their circle cutter, an X-Acto knife or box cutter, cutting mat, a Dremel and sanding drum, your heat gun, a lot of contact cement glue, stretch fabric vinyl, Cricut cutting mats, scissors, a leather burnisher, clay working tools, airbrush paint, your paint brushes, as well as all of your safety gear. And I'll have links to all of this in the description. And you're going to need a pattern. And don't worry, I got you. It's available on my website, www.tiffanycosplay.com, or see the link in the description. To first start off, you're going to want to put pieces B, C, and D onto 10mm EVA foam 4 times, and then heat treat the pieces using a heat gun. Once that's done, then you can use a box cutter to cut out these pieces. And because these pieces are going to attach together, you will want to sand the spine part, which is going to have the letter closest to the edge, at a 45. Make sure to mirror your pieces when doing this, so that way 2 pieces are sanded on one side of the spine and then 2 pieces are sanded on the other side of the spine, so that way when they are done, they will attach together. And for attaching, you're going to want to use contact cement glue. And for this, you're going to apply the glue onto both pieces of the spine, wait for the glue to fully dry, and then with the help of the table, put your pieces to the table flat, and then slowly roll your pieces together till they form one piece. You should have 2 of each of the 3 different sizes of pieces. Next, you're going to want to go to your workbench and with a sanding drum, sand the spine that came together to remove all that extra foam, as well as round the outer edges. Then to start assembling the pieces, you're going to first want to get piece B and piece C and see where you want them to connect at the back part. Then I traced where they kind of sat with a Sharpie, and this would give me an idea of where to put my contact cement glue on both pieces. Again, wait for the glue to dry, and then you can attach those 2 together. For piece D, it seemed to kind of float in the reference images, so to give this kind of illusion, I ended up cutting a 10mm rectangle with the same curvature of the spine of part B and tapered it at the tip. Once I attached it to B, I could then attach this new piece under part C. The last part to make is part A, and for this you're going to need Cost Tools circle cutter. You'll use this tool to cut the inner circle of part A and then the outer circle, and this is going to give you a Cheerio. And then after that you're going to get Cost Tools hole kits and use this to cut the 2 smaller circles. And to cut the line for that section, I just used an X-Acto knife. I then attached all of these pieces with contact cement glue onto a 2mm piece of EVA foam, the same outer circumference as the Cheerio, and then glued that piece onto our finished EVA foam shoulder pad. Now for the part that you're probably most interested in for this tutorial. And that is this laminating technique where you use stretch fabric vinyl as your material that you're covering the EVA foam rather than painting it. And I will note that this material is a bit pricey per yard, and I got it from Spandex House. I also recommend getting more than what you need, as you will use a lot of it. And one major thing about doing this technique is you will need very well ventilation, as you're gonna go through so much contact cement glue. Each piece of fabric that you're going to cover onto foam is going to require 2 coats of contact cement glue on both the back side of the fabric and the EVA foam, and your whole place is going to smell. So respirator, very well ventilation, and for doing this process you're going to want to work in small sections at a time, and you will want to cut out your pieces of fabric that will be larger than the surface area of foam that you're going to want to cover. Once you have that, I highly recommend investing in some of the Cricut cutting mats, as these have a sticky surface, and you will want to put the front side of the fabric facing down so it sticks. And then the back side is what you're going to apply your contact cement glue to. you will need to cover just about to the edge, but it doesn't need to go over, so you can still reuse these cutting mats for actual Cricut projects. And you will want to cover the entire surface, wait for it to dry, and then do another coat of glue onto the entire surface and wait for that to dry. You will also need to do the same process for your EVA foam. But you will only want to put contact cement glue onto your foam for that piece that you are covering at that time, not onto the entire surface. And we're gonna first be doing the blue sections. And to start off, we're gonna be doing the main body part. And you're gonna want to cover it first on one side, and then you're gonna work on the other side. And for best results, you will kind of lay it over where you want it to sit, and then with a leather burnisher, you're going to push into the center, and then you will not want to lift it. You will slowly work it out towards one end and then to the other. You can kind of pull it here and there, but it will show the fabric slightly as looking stretched, but from a distance, nobody will notice. Once both pieces are attached, you'll want to get a clay working tool that is flat at one tip and push both the pieces together flat at the spine. This is going to kind of lock it together and will give you a much better idea of where you're going to need to cut the fabric. And for trimming the fabric, I highly recommend using some precision surgical scissors that are extremely sharp. I didn't have time to get any, and all my scissors were still packed up in boxes from moving, so my edges ended up not being as clean as I wanted to, and there were quite a bit of holes, as well as when parts were together, there ended up being a little bit of extra material stuck together that I just couldn't get low enough for. So by investing in a different type of scissors rather than the ones I use, you'll get a much better result. And you'll also want to use a really sharp X-Acto knife blade, and this will help to remove any of the fabric from parts that you don't want, as well as to cut around parts. And then I repeated the same process for the circle sections that were blue. I will also note for this process, you do not need to have really deep channels for your foam, as the fabric's not really going to go down that far, so you can really just have it as like a 2 to 4 millimeter dip rather than 10 millimeter. Then for the yellow section, again repeating the same process, applying the glue to both the back of the fabric and to where I wanted the yellow part of the fabric to go onto the EVA foam. The last color to do was the white sections, and this one was the most difficult, as these you had to cover not just the top part, but the inside part. And I started off with the bottom piece, again moving my fabric where I wanted and then putting it down and slowly using the leather burnisher to lay it completely flat. And because we are covering these pieces in the 360, you're going to want to round them to the back side, and you'll want to have a little bit left over, about a centimeter, so that way we can attach another piece of fabric on top of it to cover your seam. And for that, you'll just place your piece on the back side and again use the burnisher, smooth it out, and this part should be going over your extra piece of material from the top half. You will want to put both sides down, and then you can use an X-Acto knife to trim your pieces. And for me, they didn't all the way match up, so there were a little bit of parts that I'll have to do some touch-up paint with, but this is pretty much the way to do this process. And once it's covered, just use your scissors and cut off the extra parts. I will note that the glue on the white fabric will have a yellow edge as well, so be careful not to have too much extra glue, as the glue is really hard to get off of the fabric on the shiny side, on the main surface, and you'll probably have to do some touch-up paint if you do get it onto the surface. Then just repeat until the entire piece is covered with your stretch fabric vinyl. The last part will be getting a heat gun, and you can do it on the low setting to your corners and apply a little bit of heat, and then with your flat clay working tool, you can slowly rub out that sharp edge and it'll become soft, and sometimes will go completely flat as well. And for me, I'm going for a more anime-like look, and I like to do my black line. And for this, you won't want to use Sharpies. Sharpie will just rub off of this material, so you're gonna wanna use some black airbrush paint. And I use Createx Colors by hand with a paintbrush, slowly going around all of the edges just to give it that pop. You can also use Createx Colors white, yellow, and blue to help do any touch-up edges, so that way you don't see the gray EVA foam, or just to cover up any parts that were a little bit of glue might have got here or there. And at this point, you might be asking, how are you gonna attach it? Well, I like to use Velcro, and you wanna get the non-adhesive back Velcro, applying contact cement glue to both of your Velcro pieces, and then to the surface where you want to attach it. And I just did it onto the underside, and it attaches to my harness for the wings. And then the shoulder pads are done. And that, guys, is how I made my shoulder pads for my Gundam cosplay. I hope you found this video helpful for making your very own. And if so, let me know in the comments. I'd love to get your thought on what you think of this vinyl wrap, as well as a big thank you to all of my sponsors here on YouTube, and also a very big thank you to all of my members, specifically those legendary members who help financially support me so I can continue making more cosplay tutorials for you as my full-time job. And don't forget, if you have not already, subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you as part of our community. And I'll see you for our next one. Much love, guys.